Christy Plunkett spent 7 seasons on Mom being the character you were supposed to root for. She's the lead. She's the one getting sober. She's the one working the program, going back to school, trying to be better. The show is literally built around her recovery, and for a while, that framing works. You root for her. You want her to make it. But here's the thing that started to bother me the more I watched this show. Christy spends 7 seasons being furious at Bonnie for failing her. And she's right. Bonnie did fail her. The drinking, the drugs, the neglect, the felonies she occasionally brought Christy along for. All of it is real, and none of it is excused. Christy has every right to be angry, except while Christy is busy being angry at Bonnie for the mother she wasn't, Christy is becoming her. Not exactly. Not in the same way. But in every way that matters. Christy Plunkett spends 7 seasons repeating the cycle she claims to be breaking. And the show never really stops long enough to say that out loud. So let me say it. Let's start with the thing the show establishes in the very first episode, because it tells you everything you need to know about what's coming. Christy is newly sober. She's at an AA meeting. She's talking about wanting to be better, wanting to break the pattern, wanting to be the mother she never had. It's moving. You believe her. And then you find out her teenage daughter Violet is pregnant, not just pregnant at roughly the same age Christy was when she had Violet, which is the same age Bonnie was when she had Christy. 3 generations of teenage mothers, each one the product of the one before, each one carrying damage they didn't ask for and didn't know how to put down. The show plays this as dramatic irony. Look how the cycle continues. Isn't that sad? But what it's actually showing you, if you're paying attention, is that Christy's recovery has a limit. She can get sober. She can go to meetings. She can say all the right things about wanting to be different. And her daughter can still end up pregnant at 17 because the environment Christy created, the chaos, the instability, the years before the sobriety when Violet was basically raising herself, already did its damage. Christy got sober. She didn't get there in time for Violet. And here's where I want you to actually sit with something, because this is the part the show rushes past. Christy's relationship with her children is not that different from Bonnie's relationship with Christy. Bonnie wasn't there. She was physically present sometimes, but emotionally unavailable. She chose the drinking over the parenting. She left Christy to figure things out alone, and Christy grew up furious about it, and rightly so. But Roscoe ends up going to live with Baxter, his father, a man who for most of the show is described as a lovable but completely unreliable pothead. Roscoe chose Baxter over Christy. A child chose the fun but unstable parent over the sober parent who was supposed to be getting it together. And Violet, by season 4, Violet cuts off contact with Christy completely. She stops speaking to her mother. She goes no contact. Just like Christy once went no contact with Bonnie, the wound passes down exactly 1 generation and lands in exactly the same place. The show frames both of these things as sad, as consequences of Christy's past, as things she's working to fix. What it doesn't do is look at them directly and say, Christy is doing to her children what Bonnie did to her, not because she wants to, not because she's a bad person, but because knowing what was done wrong to you and actually stopping yourself from doing it are 2 completely different things. And Christy has the first part down cold. The second part is where it gets complicated. Now, here's where it gets really uncomfortable, because this is the part that changed how I see this entire show. In season 2, Christy gambles away the rent money. Not the grocery money, the rent money. She loses the house. She does to her children in one night of bad decisions, something that Bonnie did to her in slow motion over years. And Violet's response is devastating. She tells Christy that every bad thing that has ever happened to her is Christy's fault. The show lets that land for a moment, and then it moves on. They find a new place. Violet decides to stay. Life continues. But that line is the thesis of Christy's entire character in 7 words. Every bad thing that has happened to Violet has its roots in Christy. Just like every bad thing that happened to Christy has its roots in Bonnie, the cycle isn't breaking. It's just wearing different clothes. And the gambling is important because it's not the same addiction. Christy stopped drinking. She gets credit for that, and she should. But she replaced one compulsion with another. The drinking went away and the gambling arrived. And for a while, the show treats the gambling almost like a quirk, a flaw she's working on, something that makes her more human and relatable. It's not a quirk, it's the same disease with a different name, and her kids paid for it. Here's the thing about Christy that I think explains everything. She grew up with a mother who was there but not really there, and so she learned to need. She learned to need things desperately and completely. Attention, validation, love, approval, because she never got enough of it. And when you grow up that hungry, you become someone who is very good at receiving care and much less good at giving it consistently. Watch how Christy operates in the AA group. She is an extraordinary sponsor to the young women she takes under her wing. She is patient, perceptive, and generous. She shows up. She gives real guidance. She is, in those moments, exactly the kind of person she always needed. And then, watch how she is with Violet. The same perceptiveness is not there. The same patience is not there. The same willingness to sit with someone in their pain without making it about herself is not there. Because those young women at AA are not triggering anything in her. They're not asking her to be accountable for years of damage. They're not standing in front of her as living proof of her failures. They're just people who need help, and Christy is great at helping people who need help. It's the people who need her to have been different that she struggles with, because being different would require going back and examining things that are too painful to examine. And Christy, for most of the show, is very good at moving forward and not great at looking back. The Bonnie relationship is where this gets the most interesting, because Christy and Bonnie's relationship looks like growth on the surface. They go from estranged to living together to genuinely supporting each other. By the later seasons, they are each other's closest person. That's real. That happened, but watch the dynamic underneath it. Christy spends the entire show forgiving Bonnie on a kind of installment plan. A little more forgiveness each season, always with conditions, always with the implicit message that Bonnie still owes her and always will. And Bonnie, who is genuinely trying to make amends, accepts those terms because she feels she has no right to ask for anything else, which means Christy never has to fully reckon with her own role in the cycle. As long as Bonnie is the one who failed, Christy is the one who was failed. And if you're the one who was failed, you get to be the victim. And if you're the victim, you never have to look too closely at what you did to Violet. It's not conscious. Christy isn't doing this deliberately, but it's there in almost every scene they share. The slight edge in Christy's voice when she brings up the past, the way she accepts Bonnie's apologies but never quite lets them fully land, the way she needs Bonnie to still be in debt to her, because the moment Bonnie's debt is paid is the moment the spotlight turns around, and then there is the ending. Christy gets a full scholarship to Georgetown Law. She leaves. She left Bonnie. She left her friends. She left the community that held her together through everything. She left and went somewhere else to build a better life for herself, which is exactly what people in the Plunkett family have always done. Her father Alvin left. Bonnie, in her own way, was never really present. And now Christy leaves. Not in the same way, not destructively. She leaves for something good, something earned. But she leaves, and Bonnie, who the show has just spent an entire episode reminding us has severe abandonment issues, who was left at 4 years old and never recovered from it, watches her daughter go. The show frames it as beautiful, and in some ways it is, but it's also the Plunkett pattern one more time. Someone leaves, someone gets left. The one left behind has to figure out how to survive it. Here's what I think Mom is actually doing with Christy that it never quite says directly. Christy is not the story of someone who broke the cycle. She's the story of someone who bent it. She got sober where Bonnie stayed drunk for years. She went back to school where Bonnie schemed and managed. She moved toward a future where Bonnie spent decades just surviving. That's real progress. That matters. The cycle does bend with Christy, but it doesn't break. Not fully. Not yet. Violet got pregnant at 17. Roscoe chose Baxter. The damage passed down even through the sobriety, because sobriety is not the same thing as healing. You can stop drinking and still be emotionally unavailable. You can stop using and still be the kind of parent your kids have to survive, rather than just live with. Christy got sober. That's extraordinary, and it shouldn't be minimized. She just didn't get there soon enough, or deep enough, to stop being Bonnie to her kids. And the most heartbreaking part of this whole show is that Christy knows it. At some level, she has always known it. It's why she holds Bonnie's failures so close. Because examining Bonnie's failures is easier than examining her own. It's why she is endlessly forgiving to strangers in recovery and endlessly conditional with the people she actually damaged. The anger at Bonnie is real, and it is also, in part, the anger she can't yet direct at herself. So maybe Christy Plunkett isn't the character Mom makes it easiest to love, and she is definitely the hardest one to defend when you look at the full picture. But she is doing something genuinely difficult. She is trying to become a different person than the one she was made into. She is trying to build something new out of materials that were already broken before she was old enough to choose them. She doesn't fully make it. Not by the end of season 7. The cycle bends, but it doesn't break. The damage moved through her, and she did not stop all of it. But she stopped some of it, and she kept trying. And she made it to Georgetown, which means Violet's daughter, Christy's granddaughter, might be the one who gets there first. The one who finally actually breaks it. Not because the cycle was solved in one generation, but because each generation bent it a little further than the last. Bonnie survived. Christy bent the cycle. Maybe Violet's daughter gets to actually live differently. That's a slow kind of hope. Except Violet did something nobody in this family had ever done before. She gave the baby up for adoption. She looked at the pattern, at her mother, at her grandmother, at the entire Plunkett history of unready women raising children they couldn't properly care for. And she decided she was not going to do it. Not because she didn't love the baby, because she did. Because loving the baby meant being honest about what she could and couldn't give her. Bonnie survived. Christy bent the cycle. And Violet, the one who had every reason to repeat it, the one who was failed the most visibly, the one Christy neglected even through the sobriety, Violet is the one who actually stopped it. If this video made you think about Christy differently, subscribe and give it a thumbs up. And let me know in the comments, do you think Christy actually broke the cycle, or did Violet have to do it for her?